bicep development is completely genetics, meaning you're born with the ability to build massive arms or you're not, right? That is what all the internet trolls and keyboard warriors online claim, so it must be true, right? But what about the guys out there actually building muscle? I mean, spending decades of their life mastering their craft and developing physiques that others would claim was not in their genetic makeup when they first started. I hate to say it, but the genetics card, it's overused and complete nonsense. And it's just an excuse to not work hard and think outside the box. I've been around bodybuilding my whole life, and I've seen plenty of cases where guys who had seemingly poor genetics for a specific body part turn that around and build an impressive amount of muscle. And I'll tell you what the common theme is for guys like this. First, they don't give in to the genetics excuse. Your outcome in bodybuilding has zero to do with where you start, regardless of how bad you think your genetics are. And second, they look outside the box and understand that if a method that works for other people isn't producing results for them, it's okay to abandon it completely and to experiment for yourself. Some of my best body parts were built with fairly uncommon methods. I often get comments that my form is not textbook on movements like barbell curls, tricep press downs, and the majority of my other arm training exercises. But performing these movements with specific form and technique that I feel hitting the target muscle group the most, given my specific and unique body mechanics and leverages, it's helped me develop my biceps and triceps into one of my strongest body parts. So don't be afraid to alter the technique on a movement if you find that it better suits your body, regardless of how the movement looks. If you're performing a lift safely and it's drawing a massive amount of blood into the target muscles, chances are that's probably the best way to perform that lift for you. But what about the actual exercise selections in general? For the biceps specifically, many people treat them as an afterthought. Many will argue that you can get plenty of stimulation from back training. And because the biceps is such a small muscle, we can just tack on a few sets of dumbbell curls at the end of a pull session and call it a day. Unfortunately, the majority of guys who think that way have small arms. And then they generally blame it on genetics. One thing that I've never heard online, never been told by anyone, or seen anyone else follow as a structure or foundation of their bicep training that came to me over years of trial and error and experimentation is that bicep training movements fall into three basic categories. And to get the most out of your bicep development, you should be incorporating at least one variation of each of these three types of movements. Now, virtually all bicep movements fall into the category of isolation exercises. So many people feel that barbell curls, cable curls, preacher curls, and similar movements are all fairly similar and could be interchanged just based on preference. That couldn't be further from the truth. As I've said in many videos, each movement in the gym comes with their own pros and cons. And to fully develop a muscle, you want to take it through a full range of motion, as well as use movements that place tension on the target muscle in all different angles. For biceps, this breaks down into these three movements specifically. First, heavy loading movements. Mechanical tension is vital for muscle growth. To put it simply, if you can put a target muscle group in a position where it's very strong, stable, and have the ability to move heavy weights through a full range of motion and produce a lot of force, that movement is going to be one of your best hypertrophy exercises, and it'll likely produce more muscle built per set than movements that don't allow as much force production. For this category, some of my favorite exercises are the basic old school barbell curl, easy bar curl, and cable curl. Don't be afraid to load up on these exercises, but the key is keeping mechanical tension on the biceps high. So if you start breaking form, you might be lifting heavier, but tension on the biceps is actually lower. The second category is movements with a high degree of stretching. You've heard me say it before. The key to building muscle is to take a muscle from full stretch to full contraction. The stretch under a heavy load in a safe manner causes more muscle damage, and as a result, more muscle growth than a movement with a short range of motion. It's this exact reason that movements like full range of motion hack squats, leg presses, and lunges all produce such bad muscle soreness in the following days. Yet the more targeted exercises for those muscle groups like the leg extension and the hamstring curls do not. It's that heavy stretch and loading in the fully stretched position for that muscle group that causes growth. For biceps, my favorite movements in this category include the inclined dumbbell curls with a full stretch at the bottom, or one-arm cable curls with the elbows pulled back. This movement is essentially the same exercise as an inclined dumbbell curl, and can also be interchanged or combined by using an incline bench and pulling with two arms similar to the dumbbell variation. The key with either of these movements is fully stretching the biceps in the lengthened position. And if you perform this movement correctly, I guarantee it will produce pumps that no other bicep exercise can. The third category is for peak contraction. Remember, full stretch, full contraction. On bicep movements, to really hit that short head, you need to do movements that force the muscle to hold and squeeze to keep the weight in the top position. Preacher curls are king here, as well as other movements like spider curls and concentration curls. If you ever notice on these movements, they're much harder to do on the top range of motion opposed to the bottom. And if you skip these movements and just think you can get away with doing barbell curls, you're most likely leaving gains on the table. And it's for that reason specifically that one variation of all three of these movements should be in your program if the goal is to take advantage of all muscle building variables in your training. If your goal is to build bigger arms, follow these 3 tips and apply them consistently, and watch your arms grow even if you think you have poor genetics. And if you're looking for a program that incorporates all these methods, as well as one that was designed to build more muscle using proven old school bodybuilding training methods, I recommend you check out my 5-day mass gain program in the description below. And as always, if you want to see more of the best original bodybuilding content just like this, make sure to hit subscribe.